Hi,
Um,
Zari.
I
Hi.
think we're just after the beginning of the hour, so we'll kick things off soon. And if we have some more people join us, wonderful. We try to keep this fairly informal, so feel free to. We'll have some time for some Q&A if there's things particular we can answer for you, and give you some resources and everything. If we don't answer something today, of what where you can tap into for any additional resources from here. So I think I got it set up. We should already be recording. I'll kick things off officially, and we'll get into our conversation and maximize our time today. So good morning. I'm Jennifer Hensley with Playmaker Coaching and Consulting. Glad to be with everybody today. We're in season 6 of Changing the Game for Northwestern Mutual Advisors, talking all about how to move from quantity to quality, which is always so hard for me to say over and over. But what we all want in our practices of spending more time with our ideal clients, the people that really energize us, and that we can have the most impact on. And as we're approaching award year, I know some of you might feel like, hey, you're right on track with where you want to be. Others might feel a little bit behind the gun. Either way, our intent is to provide you with some immediate ideas that you can take forward and build in your practice to help you accelerate your growth and help you get to where you want to go. So today we're excited that this is our second episode in the season, and we have Anthony Williams here. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself, and then we're going to dive into our topic in 10, and then we'll leave some time for some additional Q&A there at the end. If you missed our last segment with Jamie Houston, you can check that out on our YouTube page. It's Playmaker Coach, and all of the previous seasons are on there as well, with all the other advisors on various topics around client acquisition, client experience, and how you can continue to leverage marketing in your business. So let's get into things. Anthony, tell us a little bit about your practice, how long you've been in business, what your team looks like, your ideal client, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I've been a part of the Northwest Mutual system for almost 8 years and call it 10 months. So let's call it 10 years, right? Decade. And I started out as an intern. I was an intern finishing my freshman year, which is rare. They typically only hire interns as juniors or seniors. And so I definitely did some hard selling to get into the door. But was fortunate enough, right, to finish I was the number one intern on the East Coast for about 2 years in a row. And then I flipped full time back in 2018. And then, 2018 was my first year full time. And then I was bronze number one on the East Coast, and then was top 10 in my category, for the next 4 years of being a full time rep, and was lives leader my second year and third year, so on and so forth. And so I practice right now, the way it's all structured is that I'm the CEO and founder of our DBA name, Vivid Advisory. And I do have a team of 4. I have a director of financial planning, who's a certified financial planner, and soon to get more designations along the way. And then I have a director of client services, who essentially runs the entire operations for the team. So applications, rollovers, et cetera, confirmation. And I also have a phoner, and then also have someone helping me manage my social media on a day-to-day basis, and then have a few external people that are contractors helping me with the stuff. And so, I said 4, but it's actually 6, which is crazy. So we'll say 7, including myself, with some of those people being contractors. And so I think we spoke about this, Joe, when it comes to having contractors. It's nice to have a flexible payroll. So it's like, if things are bad, well, listen, I'm not obligated to contractors, but I am also obligated, to employees, and making sure that things go well with them. And so I don't want to ramble, but I think I answered all the questions.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that gives us a little bit of a background of, what your
yeah,
practice looks like. I know some people might be feeling like, wow, that's a lot of people, but like you said, they're not all full time, and you've got some flex there in terms of, as you have capacity to bring people on and help in certain areas. And then if you're focused on other things, to be able to scale that back and just work on things internally. So let's talk a little bit more about moving from quantity to quality and why that has been an important part of your business. I mean, I think everybody wants to do that, but specifically for you, why is it so important? And especially right now in your practice?
Yes, so I was always a high activity guy. I remember, I was doing at least like 100 plus new clients for like 3, 4 years in a row, and it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot, but it has definitely given me the foundation to invest into my practice. Because when we think about like renewals, when we think about referrals, when we think about just having a base to always go back to, it's made it much easier if I'm ever running out of names, running out of marketing strategies, well, at least I can always go back to my people that I started off with, and help them grow. And so, why am I going from quantity to quality? Well, I think from a time perspective, life is evolving for me, and I felt like, when I first started this thing, I was the, first one in the office, last one to leave, was working on Saturdays, sometimes Sundays, and it gets to the point where you just kind of get caught up. If anything, you work for the business. You're not having the business work for you. And so my vision long term is to get to the point where I can run this firm and just pretty much play more of like a CEO, founder type of role, where I just pick and choose who I want to see as clients, but also ensuring that if I do step away, this thing doesn't stop running. Because I know for a fact, if I stepped away for 3, 4 months, our growth will halt, and then we'll start to regress, which I'm not a big fan about. And so I think, in our world, our income is directly correlated to who we work with. And so if you're working with clientele that are making 200, 300, 400, well, your practice may make that, or it might be much easier for you to essentially get to the income goals, right? And so, like, I think you asked me a question earlier, who's our ideal client? Well, we work primarily with physicians. We work primarily with attorneys and work with the business owners and business leaders. And so, you know, we want to build a practice with just those individuals because it makes it easier to make $1 million in revenue versus chasing anyone and everyone to see that, if they want to do something or buy something. Also, what I find is that people that tend to have these type of incomes tend to appreciate your work a lot more, versus, you're calling a bunch of folks that don't really care. They just want to make sure their policies are paid up on time, but they don't necessarily have the capacity to grow more, right? And so
Yeah.
it's trying to going from, instead of working hard and working long, it's how can I work less but make more money? And I think that has to come from quality over quantity.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about some things you've done to do that. 'Cause I know you're in leadership. You have an office there too that your time, like you said, is in a lot of different spaces, but you've built this team. So tell us a bit more about a marketing strategy that you've leveraged to help you move from that quantity to quality. What's something
Yeah.
specifically you guys have done?
Yeah. So I think the first thing was establishing relationships with my local professional associations, as simple as it sounds. So, the way I'm able to do a lot of work with attorneys is that here in New York City, we have the National Black Bar Association, you have the American Bar Association. And so I got a chance to pretty much introduce myself to the leaders in these organizations and then let them know, hey, listen, I'd love to come by. I do a presentation, and it be resources. So literally like 2 weeks ago, one of the attorneys in the organization came by and hosted a session, and that one presentation literally led to like 35 attorney referrals, right, in that meeting. And then also, I did a lot of work with this another organization called the Student National Medical Association, just more like a giving back. And I went to go to Connecticut to go to the national conference, and we did a presentation in a room of about 120 residents, medical students, and then literally at the end of the meeting, I had my QR code at the screen, and I said, "Listen, book a meeting if you want to get a courtesy consultation. Offer only lasts for like 2 weeks." And then everyone took out their phone, took a screenshot. We have a ton of people that booked appointments, right? And so those are some of the tactical things that I've done, and then alongside doing that, I've also invested a lot of money into my brand, and so before the whole Instagram thing, or even people started using LinkedIn, I always told myself that I wanted to establish a brand, outside of financial planning, because I think that financial planning is it's a commodity out there. Like, you can go down a block and get financial planning. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what's going to make you different? And so I consider myself, a motivator, inspirer, entrepreneur, connect, who happens to be in financial planning. And so whenever I'm posting pictures, whenever I'm doing videos, things like that, I'm trying to inspire people, give people some perspective when it comes to running a business, being a busy professional, because today we're all busy, and some markets tend to have higher stress jobs. So I think they can benefit from some of my messaging, such as like meditation, talking about yoga, doing journaling and stuff like that. So I think my messaging is really more of like, what can you do to help manage the stressful day to days? And then once they can connect with me on that, then they'll reach out. Hey, I saw you post this, you're very inspirational, love to just kind of learn more about the work that you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot more different things, but I think it's not just one thing that I'm doing it all. And
Yeah.
so it's really just more so having a shotgun approach and then eventually just kind of ironing it down with a sniper. Okay, cool. This is the best use of time. And so something that I'm doing right now in New York is I've essentially established a group where I do events myself, and I label it as the Visionary Network, right? And so when I do these type of events, what I'm doing is I'm approaching these business owners or these venues that they serve food, they might serve alcohol, and I say, listen, these are the type of people that come to my events. I like to get a spot, at your venue for about 3 hours on this day. It's your slowest day, and so pretty sure would it hurt you to have extra people here? Would you mind?
Hmm.
Right? And then what happen is I do the event, I invite the people, they come by, they spend money, and then the way it would work is that I'm inviting potential prospects or existing clients, and they bring someone. And then also, if I'm connecting with the owner, I'm like, hey, listen, let's talk more about the work that I actually do, and so it's like a win-win-win-win, right? And so that's something that did it myself and then paused for a little bit because it is a lot to plan events.
Hmm.
And then I hired someone else to pretty much plan the events for me. And the person that's planning the events for me is he's an artist and he's pretty much going after the same people that I'm going after. And
Hmm.
so whenever we're planning the events, like Anthony, this is where I want to meet. Let's do this type of event. I'm like, that makes sense. And then we pretty much just cross pollinate our network and then get everybody in the same room. And so it's like a rinse repeat process because when I was trying to prospect up, the people that I was asking for, let's say I'm talking to someone making 100,000, I'm like, hey, who do you know makes $500,000? Well, they probably don't know who makes a $500,000, right? They might know someone who makes $110,000, $120,000, right? And so it's one of those things where I was just frustrated. I was banging my head against the wall because I'll go to all these sessions, like, yeah, just ask for who you want. I'm asking for who I want. Not getting it. And so I was like, I got to do something different. And so that's where I started shifting over to like events, started shifting over to more like the social media side, and then even started like, going more on the LinkedIn side because you know exactly who we're looking for, then you can find them. It's a matter of what your messaging, what's your niche strategy, what's your direct message strategy, are you consistent? And so it's a lot that goes.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there and a lot we could unpack and everything for certain. I think it ties in well with a lot of what we talk about is how do you supplement or help to accelerate your efforts that you are doing when you're asking by having maybe 3 or 4 other lead generation strategies that work with that. So I heard you talk about, networking and events, you talked about speaking, you talked about digital and everything, and how you can use those, but very purposefully and starting to create processes around them so that you're not just randomly trying those things, but you're really using those intentionally to say, these are part of my lead generation strategy to get to that audience. So, talk a little bit about some of the challenges that maybe you've run into and how other advisors, if they wanted to do more of these things that you talked about, how could they avoid that? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah. So I think so I'm in New York, right? And so, it's very high overhead to even operate a restaurant. And so definitely we've had to go down the list of trying to find a venue owner or a restaurant owner that's actually going to work with us. And so I'd say be prepared to hear no a lot, be prepared to run a list, but also be strategic, right? Because it's like, hey, listen, at the end of the day, you're looking to bring them more business. But again, just it's a numbers game. It's a number games with everything at the end of the day. Because like I remember one big event that I was super excited to plan was like an event at a custom tailor. It would have been amazing, right? But then we reached out to them, they said yes, and then literally they ghosted us for like 2 3 months. And I'm out here telling people that I'm meeting, hey, I'm gonna have this event. It didn't happen, right? So be prepared to hear the word no as we do in our regular business, but at least when you do these type of conversations and have these discussions, you get to come across with someone as like that's the connector. And so even so, like I remember we just landed a client who's well known in the Harlem area, and it started off might be just saying, hey, I'd love to just do an event collab with you, and then took us like a year and a half for him to do business, but he did the business. Right now, I have him. Now, something else that I'm working on right now is I'm planning on doing like a quarterly panel discussion or quarterly discussion for local business leaders. And then as a follow-up to those discussions, we're going to be hosting a monthly breakfast at a restaurant per month. And so it'd be like we do the big event, and that event is going to be more so how do we provide value to these business owners? And then after that, we just do a breakfast in the morning at one of these local spots, promote it, and now we're known as those people that do breakfast at different places, but also provide value for business owners. And so even planning through that event, it's a lot of details you have to kind of think through. And so my big thing is kind of find it. Like right now, that event that I'm planning, I'm working with my COI, who's my estate planning attorney. Again, our interests are aligned, and so I think the biggest thing is find people that are looking to do the same thing and maybe looking to build a business the same. I mean, kind of they have the same target clientele and they're willing to kind of like work on it together because doing all this stuff by yourself is very overwhelming.
Yeah,
Um,
it sounds like you've done a great job of positioning yourself, like you said, as the connector and the leader of, bringing these opportunities to really add value to your ideal clients and everything of some unique opportunities as well as those centers of influence. I know one of the things, simple things that we often talk about of where to start in this sometimes is just look at who your center of influences are, your clients, and what do they have maybe access to that's a little unique? Do they have a restaurant? Do they have a flower shop? Do they have access to tickets to something? Like what do we really know about what they could provide possibly that give you something that you could create something really unique that benefits maybe you both. So one thing I want to talk a little bit more specific about, and then we'll open it up to questions here in a couple minutes is, in terms of consistency with all the things you got going on, and when we had some offline conversations about this before about, auto generating things and how great it is to use like things and but then the benefit of customization. How are you talked about your team like making this something that is doable and consistent? What would you say regarding that?
yeah, so when it comes to all these, I mean, we're in an age of technology, so there's a lot of technology out there that can help you scale. But because everyone is looking to adopt, I remember at one point I was leveraging a piece of technology that was helping me reach out to a bunch of people on the social media platforms, and it was working, right? But then it started to slowly not work anymore, and I was like, why is this happening? Well, pretty sure everyone's getting the same exact messages in the same exact way, and I'm like, well, I need to change it up. Now I need to be more hyper. Let me sure if that's a word, but even more, be more customized, right? And customized meaning that when I'm messaging someone on LinkedIn, I may have a very general first connection message and just kind of start there. And then if I send out a second message, then I might look at this person's bio, look at this person's experience, and maybe just type something up that's very particular to them. And then maybe do like 2 or 3 rounds of messages and then ask for the meeting. I remember I had this one guy. He was an exec over at Citibank, and he told me, he was like, Anthony, I get bombarded with messages all the time, but I saw that you actually like customized your message to me, which said, you know what, this guy's onto something. Let me at least have the conversation. Spoke with him, and then end up opening like a life insurance case, a planning case, and stuff like that. And so that's why customization is super key. And so, however, customization can lead to time consumption. It takes a lot of time to be customized, right? And so I think in the beginning, you may have to just sacrifice that time. So it could be like, you know what, every day for an hour, I'm gonna reach out to 10 people per day. And I'm gonna stick to that. Just do 10, do 10. I remember when I did it, before I even hired someone to do it for me, I was literally there like bored out of my mind, go on someone's page, look it up, okay, let's set this up. And then, I took my time, and then sometimes people just don't ever get back to me, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's got to be
but
part of that shift from moving from writing 100 new clients to like, it's not about that volume, but now it's like,
exactly.
okay, we're not trying to do that for that same number of people because we know it takes more
Mhm.
time to do that customization. But how can we be really pinpointed if you're going to spend that effort to make it custom for them?
Exactly. And so yeah, so I just made sure I had daily metrics that I was gonna hit regardless of what happened. So like it'd be like, okay, you know what? I need to set out 25 connection requests today to my specific demographic. And then I need to interact with 10 people per day. Once I did that, that part of my job is done. And then I did it to the point where I'm able to see what worked and what doesn't work.
Mm.
And then I got the script lined out. I had someone else do it for me. Now they're doing it, and then it's with another advisor that's looking to generate more leads, trying to grow the business. I'm like, listen, I have a lot of untapped potential, so like, let's work together. And if they bring someone on my calendar based off of my messaging, then we'll pretty much do joint work on the case. And then it has gotten to the point where we've done this enough consistently where he's getting so busy that
Mm.
like he can't do anymore. And so I'm like, okay, cool, listen, write me a manual on how to do this. And we're then gonna take that manual and then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And so that's just how it works. And
Yeah.
the biggest thing though, what I've learned with this stuff is that you can read all the stuff on the internet, you can try the math stuff, but honestly, you will not learn what works unless you actually do it. That's the crazy. You have to actually do it consistently to pick up on a few things.
Well, I love that. I mean, you never, what do they say? 100% of, no at bats, you're still going to be like zero versus like at least get to the plate, start doing something. So start. And then what you said as far as like you started to look at the metrics so that you could make decisions of what's working, what's not working, and started to document processes and give yourself goals of like so that your marketing and your sales works together. And I think that's really when it works, when it's not just marketing's over here on this other thing I got to do, but how do you build it in? Just like if you have a goal of like here's how many calls or connections or things I want to make or fact finders for the week, like how do you integrate kind of marketing into part of that of how it's going to help you
Mhm.
get there?
Yeah,
So go
and
ahead.
one thing I want to add, because I'm all about practicality when it comes to doing
Mm.
talks, is like, okay, what can you actually do? So the way I do the metric is after a month of doing this, right? I'd say out of 100 connection requests, how many accepts did I get out of that? And then from the accepts, how many appointments did I schedule?
And do
Um,
you have some benchmarks that you found for yourself, like that if other people are saying like, "Hey, is this what I should expect?" Or, I
Yeah, actually, I was looking at our last month numbers the other day, and I think it was like out of 100, we were saying that out of 100 we sent that was sorry, not out of 100, we sent over 414 requests in a month. We had about 292 accepted, and then we reached out and tried to email to book appointments about 35, and we booked 10.
Mm,
So if you think about it, 410 requests, we booked 10 appointments. But from the 10 appointments that we booked, one of them landed me another speaking gig at an
mm.
organization. A few of them booked a phone call. And so it still leads to something. And so that's just supplementing like 10 meetings in a month, on top of doing referrals, doing
Yeah,
speaking
yeah.
engagements,
And
social
these
media.
aren't just any leads, like you said, you're being very pinpointed of the type of people that you want to meet. So
Mm.
let's open up to some questions and everything before we have to wrap up today. Zari, do you have any questions that you want to ask based off of what you've heard so far, or what would be most helpful to your business?
Yeah, so we kind of have like an untapped medical market here, which our managing director has said that, how would you suggest like breaking into that area?
Yeah. Sorry, where are you based out of?
Pensacola, Florida.
Florida. Okay. And when you say untapped medical market, what do you mean by that? Is it
Just we just have a lot of hospitals and the Andrews Institute is here, so there's like a lot of, but we don't have a lot of clients that are in that
Mm,
space.
Got it. Yeah, so one of the things about the medical market is that a lot of them are like it's a highly competitive marketplace, to be honest. And usually the easiest way to get these clients is to start working with them as residents, right? And so some of the key relationships that you can probably have would be like someone's program director. And so reaching out to that program director and say, listen, I'd like to come by and give a talk. However, what you'll notice is that every single financial advisor is doing that, right? So
mm,
you can do that. It can still work, most certainly. And so it's like, how do you think outside the box? Maybe it could be hosting some type of event for the doctors outside of work. Maybe find out their schedule for the month, because sometimes they have days where they just do clinicals. Not they don't do clinicals. They just kind of do a bunch of workshops and lessons that day. So maybe they would benefit from more of like doing something that is relaxing. Like another example, like having like a health and wellness. Like I met this person a few weeks back where she sells essential oils and sells scents that help reduce stress. So I'm going to have an event on how to reduce stress and invite our potential clients. And so that's like one thing. And another thing too, who's a great COI? Pharmaceutical sales reps. they're great COIs. So randomly, one of my clients, she's a radiologist, she invited me to like this dinner. It was hosted by Bayer, and they were like selling this contrast that you put into your body when you get an MRI. And I'm there, I'm showing up, and I'm like, what are y'all even talking about? But okay, I'm here. Got free food, met this pharma rep, and he's like, yeah, we do this very often. And literally, there's about 15 docs in the room. And I'm the only financial advisor. And now I know this pharmaceutical rep person. I'm gonna say, listen, I call them up, hey, let me have another event, love to show by, even do a cost share because we're going after the same people. So I think I think what's basic would be reach out to program directors. You still should do that anyways, because why wouldn't you? But the second thing could be maybe find a COI, find another business that's targeting that same person. And so you can literally look up like pharmaceutical sales reps in Florida. Who do they sell to? What's the company that's based out there? Reach out to them, and then have like a mutually beneficial relationship. Saying, listen, we're looking to target this. This is what we currently have going on. Love to have you come by to our events and vice versa, right? So I think that's something that would be different that you can do outside of the basic stuff.
And before we wrap it up, I want to have one last question for you this morning too, and kind of tied into this conversation. I know we talked about LinkedIn and the perception that you can't reach people in the medical market on LinkedIn, but it sounds like you've had success with going into that space and everything. So tell us a bit about like, why is that? Like, how can we dispel that belief that like, oh, if you're going after doctors, like LinkedIn's not going to work for you?
Well, it's honestly a 50-50, to be honest. Like I got off a phone call today. One of our other reps, he's like, reaching out to doctors, and I got on a call. I do a quick search. I'm actually connected to this guy on LinkedIn already, and we sent them a first message, didn't reply. Second message, didn't reply, because they honestly aren't on LinkedIn. They are there, but they some of them aren't. Like I know that most doctors, they tend to be on Instagram. Most attorneys tend to be on LinkedIn. Most business owners, they probably are not on social media unless they're like doing branding or marketing or type of things like that. They're probably on Instagram. It's just tough to find them on Instagram because you don't know who's a business owner and who's not a business owner. And so you have to do the more events in person. And so I think it really just depends. It can work, but you have to be okay with putting in the work to make it work. As an example, we sent over 400 requests. We only booked 10 appointments. And so if that's the metric, well, if you want to, get the doctor's schedule, instead of doing 400 requests, we have to do 800 requests. And so just be okay that if your market is not on that platform, you're probably going to have to literally work times 5. And then that's why you shouldn't just have one target market. I think having 3 makes sense because, I think in 3. So if you can have a doctor, attorney, or doctor, tech person, engineer, what have you, you just got to focus on 3 and just really, really, really hone in.
Well, great advice. If you have some additional questions, Zaria, you can follow up on the NM Marketing Playmakers group, or I'm sure Anthony would be open to having a conversation and talking more in depth about what you're doing in the medical market and how it could be of a resource for you there. For joining us today, Anthony, we always want to support our speakers and would love to be able to support a charitable organization that's important to you. Tell us a little bit about something that is close to your heart that we can help support for you.
So it's this organization called the United Negro College Fund. It is an organization that essentially educates kids from underserved communities about historically Black universities. And so I'm a huge supporter of them. I go to galas every year. We're a local sponsor and stuff like that. And so I went to an HBCU, and so I really love that organization because I think the key to success or the foundation to success is education, getting access to education. Because without that, I mean, what are we really accomplishing out there if you don't have the education?
Yeah, I love that. I haven't heard of that organization before, so glad to be a part of being able to support what they're doing. They sound like they're making a big change in people's lives and really important area in education. So if you are looking for some additional resources around target markets or digital strategy, check us out, NM Marketing Playmakers. We always do free consultations as well, so we can go more into depth and point you in some of those resources. You're like, does something exist for this? Or I don't know where to find it at the home office. Or we know sometimes having a partner to help you along the way can make a big difference. Reminder, a couple weeks from tomorrow, on Thursday, May 4th, we'll have our final guest for this season, Austin Weezy, who's I think he was one of the youngest fee-based planners in the system. He's going to be talking about the same topic, about how he's moved more from quantity to quality, and especially from a fee-based planning approach, what that's looked like for him and his business. So we hope you can join us. It'll be noon on Thursday, May 4th. And I'll just leave you with this final thought. Now is the time, as Anthony said, now's the time to act, to get started. Don't wait until after the awards year, even if it's small, take action today. Now is the time when you can take control of your business and that future state of where you want to go, where it's the type of practice that gives you energy and allows you to spend time where you want. And now is the time to really thrive. So thank you again all for your time today. We'll be sharing the recording for anybody who wasn't able to join us live, as well as some highlights from today's sessions over the next couple weeks. So stay tuned for those as well, and let us know if we can answer any additional questions or provide any additional resources for you from our conversation. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.